Hey, listeners! Welcome to Worlds Collide, the podcast about moving abroad. I'm so glad that you tuned in again for a new episode. So, today, my guest is Tanya. She is this really incredible lady who is working with third culture kids and also is a TCK kid herself. We talk about her own story and struggles of growing up as a third culture kid because she was growing up in this corporate family who had to move around a lot. So she's originally from Australia, where she is also at the moment. But also we talk about her moving abroad story in the past to Asia and also for her future in the United States and waiting for the paperwork. So it's all an incredible story. Definitely stay here to listen to the whole conversation. But before I let you listen to it, I just wanted to let you know real quick that there are a few ways how you can support the podcast. If you don't want to listen to it, then you just skip forward like 20 seconds. All right, so there are a few ways how you can support the podcast. One is tell everybody about it. If you like this podcast, word of mouth is always the best way how to find a bigger audience. And then you can also subscribe, of course. Then you will never miss an episode. You can also subscribe at the website worldscollidepodcast.com. And I have also set up a buy me a coffee. So if you feel extra generous, feel free to chip in whatever amount you feel comfortable and find the link in the show notes so you can just buy me a coffee. And what else? Yeah, of course. And then, of course, like you can give this podcast a 5-star rating if you like it, wherever you listen to the podcast in all the apps. That would be awesome. All right, that's it. Thanks for staying with me. Here is now Tanya. My guest today is Tanya. How are you today?
I'm great. It's a beautiful spring day here in Australia.
Oh, it's a spring day. See, here it's fall. But
Yes,
it's always like my evenings here when I have guests from like that side of the country. So for me, it's 9 p.m. What time is it for you?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay. Oh, you already have in the middle of the day. See, I never know the time zones to Australia.
Yeah,
Where in Australia are you?
I'm in Canberra, the capital,
Ah,
in
you
the
are in
southeast.
Canberra. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And so what brought, or like, where are you from originally?
I am originally from Australia, but I've only
Uh-huh.
been back for 5 years. I've only spent 8 years of my adult life in Australia. The rest has
Ah,
been mostly in
okay.
China, but also Cambodia.
Ah, okay. So what brought you abroad?
I was studying, so I had done a major of Chinese and an Asian studies degree, and
Uh-huh.
part of that was spending a year studying in a Chinese university. And I thought I would go and do my 1 year study and come back and be a normal little corporate person. And instead, I
Uh-huh.
stayed. And I ended up the first time there for 10 and a half years. And
Oh,
then I did
okay.
6 months in Cambodia, came back to do my master's in Australia, and then went back to China until the pandemic.
Okay. And so was that like in the first year already that you decided to say like, hey, this is gonna be a little bit longer than I actually planned? Or
Yeah.
like how come that it just happened to be like another 10 years?
Well, the university where I studied was a language university. So it was the Beijing Language Culture University. And half the school is Chinese people learning foreign languages, and half the university is foreign students learning Chinese. So I was spending 20 hours a week in the classroom learning Chinese with other foreign students, and
Mm-hmm.
20 hours a week on the homework to keep up with what was happening
Oh,
in the
yeah,
class.
yeah.
But everyone I was meeting were from all over the world with all these different life directions and life plans, different values, different cultural quirks. And it was an incredible learning opportunity. But what it also did was it showed me that there were so many different ways to live. And by three quarters, two-thirds, even of the way through the year, I had this just sort of sense that I was at a crossroads. I could go back to Australia and live the life I always assumed I'd live, or I could spend some more time here and just see what else was out there. I
Uh-huh.
didn't have a clear plan. I just knew that there's more out there in the world. And so I decided to take the leap of faith, and I just jumped off the cliff without really a plan. I found an
Oh, okay.
internship, and I found a job, and then yeah, it became my life.
Oh, wow. And did you stay the whole time in Beijing?
Uh, Mostly, I was in Langfang for a couple of years, but that's an hour and a half drive up the road. I was in Beijing for or every weekend basically for the time I was out.
Okay.
So effectively, I was in Beijing the whole time,
Okay.
but in
And
very different
can
parts of the city at different times.
oh, okay, can I ask you like how you managed to find a internship or then afterwards a job?
Well, it was a lot different then to now, right? The visa rules
Mhm.
were way more flexible,
I
and
see.
so
Yeah.
now it would be almost impossible to do what I did.
I see.
Because
Uh-huh.
companies are not going to go through all of the work you have to do to get that visa for someone to just be an unpaid intern or a low paid intern. And it is like a lot of the visas and a lot of the jobs I did in that time would not be possible now. Those visas don't exist, those jobs don't exist.
Ah.
And so it was, yeah, it's part of why I don't live there anymore. The visa I was on before the pandemic, I doesn't exist anymore.
Ah, okay. So did you then go back before the pandemic?
I was living in China when the pandemic started. And
Uh-huh.
then I went to Cambodia, Thailand to do some work. I was an independent um, educational consultant. I worked with international schools, mostly around Asia. And I went down to do some work, attend a conference, and go to a couple of schools, and the
Okay.
entire world shut down. And
Okay.
what was supposed to be a 3-week trip turned into never going back. So I left on March 8th,
Ah.
2020. Things were pretty calm in Beijing at the time. But literally within days of me leaving, all of Southeast Asia became problematic. I couldn't go to any of the events that were planned because they all shut down. The schools shut down. China put in this mandatory 3-week quarantine in a government mandated facility.
Sure.
And my husband's
Yes.
not very comfortable about this. Then Australia's like, if you're coming home, come home now. And we're like, maybe you should go. And then on the 26th of March, China cancelled all visas. And so I no longer had a work visa. I could not go.
Ah. Oh man, so that was not
I'd already
even like
renewed my work visa.
planned for you.
It was not planned at all. I'd already renewed my work visa. It was waiting for me to come pick up for the next year. And
Ah, okay.
it was cancelled.
So you were not even like thinking about going back to
No, we were planning
Australia.
to be there long term.
Okay. And how did you like? What was your reaction, or how did you feel about that?
Well, I went into a deep depression for 18 months, is the short version.
Uh-huh.
No, it
Yeah.
was it was really hard. I mean, it took me months to really acknowledge that I wasn't going back because we didn't know at the time that this was permanent,
Right.
right?
Okay.
We
So
were
it
like,
was
"Oh,
like
this is just
hanging
the
in the
pandemic,
air.
they'll work things out." We gave ourselves a because my husband was inside China and I was outside, and we don't share a citizenship. And during the pandemic,
Okay.
it was really hard to move around. We went, "Okay, we'll wait until the end of June, and if there's not a pathway back for you into Beijing by then we will like choose to leave China." And and then in middle of June there was an outbreak of COVID in Beijing, and we're like, well, that's it. It's not going to change anytime soon, and started making plans. So he ended up moving to the US, which is his passport country, and we have been living in separate countries ever since, working on immigration paperwork.
Ah. Oh my God.
That's the short
That
version.
is that's a short version, and there was probably like a lot of back and forth and
Well, I'm
um
not allowed in the US while my immigration paperwork's in process. So I went before we put the papers in for a couple of months. But even though I have
mhm.
a visa that allows me a 1-year entry, they only gave me 3 months during the pandemic. So I was there for
Yeah.
3 months and then I had to leave. And he came out here for 3 months at one point, which is the maximum he's allowed in Australia. And then we met up somewhere else for a couple of months. And that's it. That's the only times we've seen each other because we don't have the money to be
Oh,
going back and forth across the world.
and and how long is the process?
How long is the process or how long is the process supposed to be? Because those are two very different
Yeah,
questions.
both.
There was a
Both.
problem with my Chinese police check. So that has been 3 years of delay, attributed just to the problems with that document. So we've been in the process 4.5 years, and 3 of those years were problems with that one document. So we're very close to being done, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God, but that is like hard. I
It is
mean,
very hard.
it's very frustrating.
Yep, you are
Yeah.
correct.
Yes. And because and how long were you guys married in before? Or like how long have
2
you been
years.
married before you started that process of the, I guess, citizenship or green card?
Yeah, 2 years. So we've lived
And
apart longer than we've lived together, married.
yeah. Yeah. So you want to go to the US then?
Yes, that's the better place for us for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, it's a hard situation at the moment for other reasons, but that's where all of his
Mhm.
family are and a lot of my
Mhm.
closest friends. That's where we got married.
Okay.
Um, and there's better opportunities for us in a lot of ways in the States compared to in Australia.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, there's a lot of reasons that have gone into it, but also Australia is the most expensive place in the world to get PR for your spouse. So there's that too.
What does that mean? Pay
Permanent
out.
residency, the equivalent of a green card.
Ah, see, I did not know this. So this is
Mhm.
probably like then like big one big point of like not choosing Australia then, I
Yeah, I mean, if
guess.
everything else made Australia the best place, then we would work that out. But
Yeah.
it's not. So the huge financial burden of it definitely
Yes.
weighs against it when there's not other reasons for it.
Right. And how much longer do you assume, fingers crossed, do you have to wait for your papers?
Well, once they approve the documents, it should be quite fast, but they keep telling us things that are wrong with the documents. So we'll see. It, we would expect that I'm there within 6 months, but we've said that before. So,
Okay. I see. So you don't want to jinx it. Do you
well,
think like
it's more that we hope is difficult when you've been
yeah,
having it go wrong so many times. So,
right.
many times we've thought I'd already be there.
Would you like consider like trying to go to, I don't know, meet somewhere in the middle, like
Where's in the
try
middle of
both, get
Australia and the US?
I don't Europe. I don't
uh,
know.
but then we'd both be paying really expensive flights to get there.
I mean, like, let's say, like, we could, why don't we both try to get, I don't know, a visa for England or something?
Yeah, except it's not that easy to get a
Mm,
visa to live and work somewhere. It's actually quite difficult. A lot of people assume that you can just go somewhere and you
yeah,
can't. Um,
yeah,
Getting a visa to live and work somewhere is quite difficult. There are a few places that have now started um, the digital nomad style visas,
right.
but you'd
Mm-hmm.
be going somewhere without any family support, any friends, any community. You'd be starting again from scratch,
Yeah,
and with for my husband, no job. Only my job will travel.
yeah, because like also you have to have that job that allows it.
Yeah, so my job travels, his doesn't, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's not as simple. Every possible solution has a whole bunch of problems that come along with it. The
Yeah,
other big issue is that now that I'm this far into an immigration process, if I pull out of this process, there's a
yeah,
good chance
no.
that I would never be able to re-enter it and be able to get resident
Also, like you would
or my
feel
husband's
like you
passport.
wasted all that time.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the waste of time, it's the fact that it would count against me if I wanted to try again later.
Mm,
Oh, you're not really committed to wanting to be in this country
right, right,
because you
right.
changed your mind. And
Yeah.
so there's so many different considerations. It's not as simple as like, oh, you could just do this, you could just do that. Um, there's so many different elements wrapped up in these decisions, and it's true for not just us, but for so many families around the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's the sunk costs in time and money and everything else, but also all of these decisions for different families around the world. There are so many layers to them, right? It's
Yeah.
not just the money, it's not just the location, it's family and it's work and it's where you feel safe. And there's so many
Mm-hmm.
elements to these decisions. They're so complex and everyone's case is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's completely right. Um, and I mean, this is also because like of your work you're doing, right? Because like you
Mm.
like work with this topic the whole
Yes. Yeah.
time, like all day long for many years.
Yeah. It's 20 years this month, actually.
Oh wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, so tell me about it. What is it exactly what you're doing?
That's a great question right there. Basically, what I do is I support globally mobile families. So, people who are living between countries, between cultures, and especially the children who grow up that way. So, third
Mhm.
culture kids, people who are living
Mhm.
in a country that is not their passport country and that they don't have an intention to immigrate to um, when they are children, but also when they're adults, looking back on those experiences.
Mhm.
At different times in my career, I have done that as a consultant with international schools, training teachers, training parents, training students. I've done that as sort of a mentor and a coach, working directly with students and young adults and parents. I've done that as a researcher. I've done that as an author, and yeah, lots of different roles over 20
Mhm.
years.
And it's called TCK Training.
TCK Training is the company I work for right now. I've been there for 4 years. It's the best job I've ever had. And I'm the
Nice.
director of research and international education there.
Okay, and what does it stand for, TCK?
TCK is third culture kid. So a third culture
Oh
kid,
yeah.
yeah, that's the person who's growing up between worlds. Um,
Uh-huh.
and particularly for us, while our focus is third culture kids, so much of what we do I've found to be applicable across other spaces as well. So I just came back the other week from a training working with second generation immigrant community and how to help bridge those cultural divides.
Mhm. And do you do this in Australia then?
That one was in Australia, but
Uh-huh.
mostly I'm working in Asia, occasionally in Africa, wherever the work takes me, wherever I'm asked to go
Okay.
and brought out to speak.
And you said that works with any culture, or do you work specifically with one culture? You concentrate more on one culture, like.
No, we work globally and internationally. So I've worked in, I think, around 19 countries at this point.
Mhm.
But mostly I'm working with intercultural communities. So I'm working with communities
Mhm.
where there are people from a lot of different cultures who are living and working together. So I'm going into
Okay.
workplaces where you have people from different countries together, schools that have kids from 50 different countries attending together. Um, I do work with different branches of the UN where you've got people working together from across countries and families who are
Uh-huh.
moving across national borders. So that is more
Okay.
common for me. Um, I've done mentoring with children and coaching with young people from a range of different national backgrounds. Um, I've never actually worked in an Australian company. I've only ever worked cross culturally. I've worked in Chinese companies, American companies, and very culturally diverse workplaces,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
never in an Australian
I
workplace.
see.
So that's
And
the
those.
international is the norm for me.
Right. So this is like mostly like for expat families, kind
Yeah.
of,
hmm
who then at some point saying like, okay, we're only here for like a few years and then we'll go back to our country, or maybe we'll whatever.
Well, some
My
expats live
husband's.
for a long time in a country,
Yeah.
but living somewhere a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you have the power to immigrate and to stay. So
Right.
there's a really big difference between the immigrant family who's like, we're moving to a new country and we plan to stay there.
Yeah.
And that for me, so the word expat can be really problematic because it has all these colonial overtones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the reason I think we need a differentiation in terminology, regardless of the words we use, is that there's a big difference between going, I'm going to go to this place and stay there, and I'm going to go to this place to work, but I don't have the power to choose to stay. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the phrase migrant worker is used for that. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so I don't care which word we use, as long as we can have a term that helps us understand the temporary nature of growing up
Yeah.
or living in a place that you cannot call your own. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, my husband lived in Hong Kong and then China since he was 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
basically nonstop,
Mm-hmm.
was never going to be able to become a citizen.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was the only country that was home for him,
Mm-hmm.
but he had no pathway to citizenship or permanent
Right.
residence there. And so when the border closed, he had nowhere to go but to a country that was on his passport, but he hadn't lived in since he was 10.
Yeah, I see.
And that for me is the difference for the third
Yeah,
culture kid
100%. Mm-hmm.
and the expat or migrant worker, whichever terminology we're using, is when you don't have the power to choose to stay.
So, what are the struggles for those kids mainly, or what do you focus on?
So, part of what we focus on is a balance of the struggle and the hope. We really believe that these international lives are worth living and that there are really good things that come out of it. But there are also specific potholes in the road, there are specific struggles. And if we don't recognize them, we don't address them. And then they can become long term problems. So,
Mm-hmm.
some of the long term problems we see are issues around identity and belonging. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because you're always trying to fit in these and living between these different cultures and learning these different ways of being and some TCKs need some assistance to work through that sense of, well, who am I between all of these places.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is that in our research we've seen that TCKs have higher rates of mental health concerns,
Ah,
and so
okay.
we want to make sure that TCKs are receiving the support that they need to process the emotions they have. Um, a lot of TCK research for a long time has shown that TCKs have a lot of grief experiences. That is, they're going through a lot of transition, they're saying a lot of goodbyes. Even those who
Mm-hmm.
are staying in one place long term, they're seeing other people come and go.
Yeah, I
Or
see.
they're going on a holiday to see their grandparents and
Ah,
coming
yeah,
back. Like they're
right.
switching countries. There's this nature of grief and goodbye, and often disenfranchised or suppressed grief where we're not talking about those feelings, where we're sucking it up, we're putting on a happy face, we're pretending it doesn't hurt. And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of unresolved emotion, unresolved grief, unprocessed emotion has a long-term consequence. And so a lot of the work we do is in preventive care. What can we do for families living abroad to ensure that kids can thrive long term? And the latest research we released just a few weeks ago, actually, it's almost exactly a month ago. Um, the latest research we just released demonstrates very clearly that the PACEs, positive childhood experiences, have a dramatic impact on TCKs. When
Mm-hmm.
5 to 7 pieces are in place, we see a dramatic drop in rates of mental health concerns, a dramatic drop in negative perceptions of their childhood, a dramatic drop in a lot of the common TCK struggles. So these very simple preventive care elements make a difference. And that's what we're all about. We're all about equipping families to raise kids in a healthy way, no matter where they are.
Okay, and can you just do like one quick example, like what one positive way is
Yeah.
to give your child that they have a better experience?
Yeah, the positive childhood experiences, part of why they're so exciting is they are very simple. They are things that often happen naturally in our life, but we have to be a bit more intentional about if we're living internationally. So, one of them is feeling safe and protected in my home. There's an adult who protects me, I feel safe.
Uh-huh.
The reason this can be a bit tricky internationally is what looks like safety can be different from country to country.
Right.
So,
Ah,
for
okay.
example, some of the kids I know growing up in China and Cambodia, they've grown up with walls around their compounds. There's guards, there's boom gates. There might be broken glass stuck in the top of the wall so people can't come over it. There's bars on
Mm-hmm.
windows, things like that. Their parents look at that and go, I feel unsafe because we need all of these safety features. The child who's grown up that way looks at that and goes, this is how I know I'm safe. And so this family then moves to another country, like, say, Australia, where there's no fence at the front of the house,
Mm-hmm.
there's no bars on the windows. The parent goes, phew, I can relax now because I'm safe. And the
Right.
child's anxiety goes up because they're like,
Right.
there's nothing here to keep me safe. There's no guard, there's no
Mm-hmm.
wall, there's no bars, there's no locks. Anybody
Uh-huh.
can get to me. And so something as simple as feeling safe in your home can look different in different countries. And
Okay.
if parents aren't intentional about it, their child may feel anxious in exactly the same place that their parent feels safe.
Ah, okay. So you kind of need to um, go into the perspective of your child more.
Yeah. And so we do things like we teach parents to have really simple conversations. Like anytime you're in a new place, it could be a hotel room, it could be on holiday, it could be visiting grandparents, it could be moving to a new country, having a very simple conversation that you could have even with a 2 or 3 year old about, okay, let's have a look at this new place that we're staying in tonight. Here's where the safety features are. See, there's a lock on this door, there's a lock on this window, there's a guard at the front desk of the hotel, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the children what's there, and we say, once you've fallen asleep, mum and dad will make sure every window and door is locked before we go to bed. And you just make sure that the kids know here's what the safety features are, and
Okay.
the parents have it under control. The point is,
Okay.
we want kids to have to not worry about safety because they know the parents have safety covered. If we talk about it, kids stop worrying. A lot of parents feel like if we talk about these things, will cause worry. But for most children, talking about things actually alleviates worry because they know their parents have it under control.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and is everything that you do, is it just for the mental health, or is it also sometimes um more like the technicalities? Like here, this is how you prepare, I don't know, the language
The
if you're gonna
logistics. Yeah.
change, yeah, the logistics when you just move to a new country or something, or this is like how you should prepare for the culture.
Yeah. Most of what we do is around emotional health and helping parents and children have a better connection and looking for the
Mm-hmm.
long term thriving. So we're not looking so much at, well, how do you find a house?
Yeah. Okay.
We're looking at how do you thrive long term? How do you ensure that your goals for your child are actually happening? Because
Mm-hmm.
so many parents have these goals of, we want to see the world with our kids. We want them to have this amazing experience. And so we're doing this research to go, okay, of children who grew up this way, which ones have had that amazing experience and what's different about their experience that's caused that to happen for them? Um,
Mm-hmm.
which children, had some difficult things happen and still thrived and did really well. And we're seeing that pieces make a really big difference there. Pieces research is quite cutting edge in trauma research. ACEs research has been done for 30 years. Pieces research, the first really big paper published on it was only 2019. So we're really ahead of the curve in
Okay.
talking about this. This is really important research. And you're going to see more of this coming out in the next 10 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a lot of different institutions because it is absolutely the future of trauma research. Our focus is on ensuring that families have the best possible experience as they live abroad. And so much of that comes down to parent child connectedness.
Yeah. I mean, that is always like one of the most important things
Yeah.
anyway, right? To have a good connection to your child, like the safe place for your children.
Yeah. The other thing we do is we train caregivers. So we train the people who are supporting families abroad. So a lot of organizations,
Ah.
they have like family support officers. In missionary
Uh-huh.
work, that's called member care. Um, and so we train these people. They come and do certifications with us on how to care well for these families, how to put together a program of care, how to work with TCKs well. We have a training on counseling TCKs, what's different when you're working with TCKs as opposed to other people. And so we do a lot of training the trainers.
Okay, so you mean with caregivers, like for example, the au pair or the nanny or
No, people who work for the organizations who are sending people overseas.
ah.
Yeah, so like
Okay.
for example, I've been working with some of the regional counselors at UNICEF offices, or the World Bank's Family Support Officer, or
Mm-hmm.
the member carers at various mission organizations, international school teachers and counselors and principals, people who are caring for families while they
Mm-hmm.
live overseas, or people who are sending families overseas.
And is this also what your books are about? Because you have two books
Mhm.
published
Yep, I have
and
two.
uh-huh.
And yeah, my colleagues at TCK Training have another, I think, I don't know, half a dozen between them.
Oh wow.
All
Yeah.
more these days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my first book came out in 2016, Misunderstood: The Impact of Growing Up Overseas in the 21st Century. It is very much about understanding what it is like to be the person growing up overseas, how that impacts the way you see the world, and all the different ways that this can happen. So, what's the difference between attending a local school and attending an international school? What's the difference between living in one country overseas your whole life, or moving from country to country to country, or moving
Mm-hmm.
overseas for the first time as a teenager? What's the difference between being a missionary kid or a diplomat kid or a corporate kid like
Okay.
I was? And it's full of stories. I interviewed nearly 300 TCKs for this one, and about 100, I think more than 100 of them are quoted in the pages telling their stories.
Oh wow. Okay. So your background is also that you moved around a lot with
Yeah,
your
I mean,
with your
not as much as some of the
parents?
kids that I work with,
Yeah.
but yeah, I moved between Australia and the US as a child. My first flight, I was 15 months old, going from Australia to the
Uh-huh.
US. I basically started speaking in North Carolina in the US. Wasn't there for very long though. We were back in Australia for all of my primary school, and I started middle school in Australia, and then we moved to the States again, a different part of the
Oh,
country this time. And I did a few
uh-huh.
years in a local US public school,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back to Australia for my last 2 years of high school. And yeah, and then to China to finish my degree and
Oh, I see. So
moved
this
on.
is like also like influenced heavily by your own experience because I was like my first thought was, oh, you maybe your husband gave you also a big idea for the book.
Yeah, I started working with TCKs in China though. I didn't know I was a TCK until I'd been volunteering
Uh-huh.
with TCKs in China for a couple of years. I just somehow didn't connect my experience with theirs.
Sure.
And probably partly because a lot of people didn't acknowledge it either when I was growing up. You know, the corporate world really doesn't engage well with sort of social emotional content and what is a TCK?
Right.
Like that's not part of the corporate packages. And so
I bet it's mostly just focused on the person they are
the logis
hiring,
well,
right? And
they'll give the
not the
family
rest of the family.
well, they give the family logistical support, like, you know,
Yeah, but
like
not
how
the
to get the house
mental.
and the school and all of those things, and there's financial support, obviously, and the moving trucks and the companies and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
like all of that, everything that you need to physically move. Some do some kind of transition support, some sort of counseling or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it tends not to be very well TCK informed in terms of
Sure.
the long term impact, right? And the way
Mm-hmm.
it changes your identity, and the way you see yourself and see the world. And so I had no idea that there was such a thing as a TCK, and I didn't know what reentry or repatriation was. And so it was 10 years after having returned to Australia as a teenager that I read about this thing called repatriation. And I found out that this is a thing that people go through. And I looked at this list and I went, tick, 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 tick. That's what happened to me. And I had this
Ah.
revelation that there wasn't something wrong with me, that I couldn't cope, that there was, you know, that I just was doing a bad job being a person when I returned to Australia, that this was a really
Mm-hmm.
normal thing that lots of people went through. And it was incredible. That sense of you are not alone is
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of what we do is people realizing the things that you're finding difficult are so normal and you're going to get through it. And you know that because hundreds of other people have been through it before and they've got through to the other side. And here are some things that helped them.
Mm-hmm. And do you recall from your own experience what your struggles were, like
Um,
reintegrating into Australia?
one of the big ones was in the US, I stood out, right? I had an Australian accent. As soon as I opened my mouth, everyone knew I was the Australian girl. I went to a school
Uh-huh.
with 2,400 students and I was the only Australian. And people found it cute and interesting, but there was also no grace for me to have cultural differences. And so I felt like I was always making these cultural faux pas that I didn't quite know what was wrong, but someone was upset with me and I didn't really understand why. And
Uh-huh.
so when we were planning the move back to Australia, I spent months so excited to go back and just blend in and be
Yeah.
normal and
Uh,
not have to worry about all of this stuff. And then, of course, we get back to Australia, and the first time I meet people, they're all like, "Oh my gosh, you have such a fun American accent."
oh yeah.
And I got nicknamed Miss America because my
And
accent
then
was actually halfway in the middle, which is where it
yeah.
is most of the time, honestly, is somewhere in the middle. I've gotten over it. I've gotten used to it at this point. This is the most Australian I've sounded for a while, probably. But yeah, that was heartbreaking to realize that I wasn't just going to slide back in and be normal and it would be
Uh-huh. So you are like there you are Australian, but in Australia you're American.
yeah. Years
Uh-huh.
later, decades later, my sister and I talked about this because we didn't talk about it as a family. We all thought we were going through our own individual thing.
Yeah.
Her American accent was even stronger than mine, and no one at school even believed that she was Australian. So she ended up stealing her passport out of the parents' filing cabinet to take it to school to prove, see, I have an Australian passport, I'm Australian.
Oh
It
wow.
didn't stop the teasing, of course.
Yeah, no, but
But when
But
people are
she just
questioning
wanted to
this
prove
key
it.
piece of your identity, and
Yeah.
especially when overseas you spent 2-3 years having your Australianness thrown in your face, and then you
Mm-hmm.
come back and people question that piece of you,
Yeah.
that is something a lot of TCKs go through. The other thing that was hard for me is everything just seemed harder than it should be. And what I know now is really common when you go through a big transition like that, your nervous system has to readjust because we're programmed to respond to unfamiliar stimuli. So when the
Mm-hmm.
sounds are different and the smells are different and the tastes are different,
Mm-hmm.
everything you hear is different. Your brain is constantly alerting, going, "Oh, is that safe?"
Ah, yeah, yeah,
And
sure.
every time you move to a new location, that puts your brain on edge, and it takes a while for that to sort itself out. And that long term stress of that has a lot of different physiological, and emotional consequences. And so, in about a year or so, I was fine. But there was a period of time there where I felt slow and behind the ball and not quite myself. And I thought there's something wrong with me and I'm just not coping. I just have to try harder. Where what I really needed was to relax and give myself a break
Mm-hmm.
because my body needed space to be calm and to
Mm-hmm.
soothe. And I needed more sleep. My body needed to rest from all of this nervous system activation. I know
Yeah,
that
that's
now,
good
I
to
don't know
know.
how to do it now, but as a teenager who didn't
No,
even
you
know
don't
she
know
was
it,
going
right?
through an experience, oh, I'm in Australia, it should be easier now. I just spent 6 months berating myself for why can't you do the things?
Do you expect this when you will go back to the US?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
obviously you're gonna stand out because you have an Australian accent, but also like to some other habits.
Oh, I know it will be difficult, and that's okay. I'm so much more practiced now at giving myself grace and kindness, of
Yeah.
expressing my difficult emotions rather than burying them. It's not always easy for sure, but I have more practice at recognizing when my body needs rest. And that's a
Yes.
huge part of it.
And I mean, it's also like you're an adult now.
Hmm.
Also, like you have this huge background with this experience. So
Hmm.
I guess like you already have like a different point of view.
Yeah.
But when you're a child, you don't know what's going on. And also, you don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice, yes. But also, this is part of why this preventive care work is so important. Training parents how to have these conversations with their kids. Often, when you go through a big transition as a family, the kids have huge need, the most emotional need they're ever going to have, at the time that the parents have the least energy and capacity to give to their children. It is really hard. And
Mhm.
coaching families through this, coaching parents through this, that again, there's nothing wrong with you. This is normal. Like, you need to not just try to power through, but instead, like, rest. Give yourself
Okay.
space. Take care of your own needs. Oxygen mask principle. You've got to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your kids. You need to be in a village. You can't do it all by yourself. Lean on the support of others, right? Get people involved. All of these things. And when we know that these principles are there, it becomes not a failure to need that support and help. It becomes, oh, standard normal. This is good parenting. And
Mhm.
so many, like, my biggest passion for working with parents is that so many expat parents carry a huge weight of anxiety, of stress, of even shame around their parenting overseas because they see the ways that, oh, this is harder, or I don't know how this is going to turn out, or how do I do this? I've got too many things to do. And just being able to share stories of other people and, yeah, this is hard and you've got this. So many parents who come for advice and I'm like, look at all these things you're doing that are the exact right thing to do and the research tells you it's the right thing to do, can alleviate some of that anxiety.
Yeah.
And we've
Yeah, for
actually
sure.
we have a course on these positive childhood experiences, and we made it free because this is
Oh,
something that
okay.
parents just need, is to know
Mhm.
what these 7 things are and how to implement them. You know, this is the most fundamental thing that's going to help families. And so we want everyone to have access.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, the website is
TCK Training.
tcktraining.com.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. And then everybody can find all the information there. And I make sure that it's also in the show notes for the listeners.
That's lovely.
But let's go back to your books because I feel like we kind of drifted off. So I asked you about the books and then we like changed the subject somehow. So let's do the misunderstood first.
So I feel like I already talked about misunderstood. What else should I tell
Yes,
you
you
about
already
misunderstood?
said misunderstood, and so and where is it? You can buy it on Amazon, and
Yeah, it's
also
everywhere
just for
online.
the
And yep.
listeners, I put it also in the show notes. But you also just recently published another book.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Thongs or Flip Flops, Australian Kids Overseas and What Comes Next. That came out last year, co-authored with Kath Williams, who is the TCK Care Coordinator for Missions Interlink, which supports basically all the mission agencies in Australia. So she works with
Mm-hmm.
missionary kids who are Australian, going out from Australia and coming back to Australia, and she's amazing. So we worked on this book together to provide resources and support and stories for Australian families specifically, because there are, special things that are different about the Australian context. And it was surprisingly cathartic for me. Like, I've been doing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and yet, and literally writing it and doing the interviews, and yet somehow putting it together and reading it all together, seeing other Australian TCKs having gone through some of the same things as me
Mm-hmm.
was, it was so touching to be like, wow, other people really did go through. It's not just me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
keep
that's
coming back
nice.
to that, right? And even though I know it's not just me, theoretically, there was something so different about these Australian stories that mirrored mine so exactly. So a big thing for Australians is most of the time, Australian TCKs, we're moving across the equator to schools that,
Mm-hmm.
like we were just talking about, it's fall for you, it's spring for me.
Yeah.
That also means the school years change. So the Australian school year
Right.
runs January to December.
Oh yes. Oh,
And
so
so when
so
I,
yeah.
so when I changed from Australia to the US and back again, I mean, I'm also a corporate kid, and you just get moved randomly when works for them. So we got the call partway into a school year. So I'd finished grade 8, I'd started grade 9. So I had done the first term of grade 9. And then I moved to the States and I did the last 6 weeks of grade 8 there. Did another summer,
Yeah.
did all of grade 9 and half of grade 10 in the US, and then moved back and started grade 11.
So like either you do double or you miss out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
And you
exactly.
always have that super long break
I have
and
to
then you
skip
have
up half
again
a
a
year
long
or skip
break.
back half a year. Yeah, so you skip up half a year or
Yeah.
skip back half a year. That's what happens. And for Australian TCKs, that's almost always the case, because we're almost always going to a country that
In the
is,
northern hemisphere.
yeah. And it
Mm.
means that every time you move, like moving into Australia and moving out of Australia, you're going either, um, you're either leaving halfway through a school year, or you're arriving through a school year. It's one or
Mhm.
the other. You have to pick which one. It's like it's
Yeah.
going to be one or the other. There is, so it interrupts your school year, and then you're always changing curriculum as well.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you're in Australia, you're
Ah,
doing the Australian curriculum, which
sure.
does not match up overseas. Like, there are
No.
no international schools doing Australian curriculum. Well, that's not entirely true. There are a few schools doing Australian curriculum in primary school. Um, I don't know of any that are doing Australian curriculum in high school. You can do, Australia is pretty well set up to do online schooling with the
Mhm.
Australian curriculum. So if you want to do homeschooling, that is pretty easy to set up, because Australia has for decades had the School of the Air, which is radio school.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
So if you want to do homeschooling, you can do Australian curriculum reasonably well. But that does not work for everybody.
Sure.
So if you're going to go into an actual school, you're almost always going to be, you're always going to be changing curriculum too. And the
Mhm.
curriculums do not always match up. So that I also did. I changed curriculums. And in all of my changing back and forth, I ended up 18 months behind in mathematics when I got back to Australia. The end result being I didn't finish high school maths. As someone who's always been quite bright and good at maths, that was devastating. Uh,
Mhm.
it made me feel stupid. It could have been done differently, but so many things went wrong at so many different points. Like when I first arrived in the States, I only had 6 weeks in that school, and I was never given a proper assessment of where I was up to in the curriculum. The only
Mm-hmm.
assessment, I was walked into a classroom and they said, "Have you done this before?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Great, this is your class."
Oh,
That was
okay.
my
So
assessment.
nothing.
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
And it turned out I was in completely the wrong level. When I arrived at the new school the next school year, because that was the last 6 weeks of grade 8, and then you move into high school in grade 9. So it's a new school.
Mm-hmm.
I've been put in a level. I look at the textbook and go, I know absolutely everything in this. And long story short, they refused to move me into the next level. So I repeated an entire year of content I already knew.
Oh no.
Yep. Because a couple months earlier, someone had walked me into a classroom and just assigned me a level almost randomly.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Redoing thongs or flip flops and finding out that so many others had these similar experiences was really
Mm-hmm.
cathartic. Because
Yes.
I think I'd always felt like, well, I sort of should have said something. I mean, I was 13. What could I
No,
have
you're
said?
not gonna say something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
How was I
now you
supposed to
would say
know?
something,
Yeah. And
but when
now,
you're,
coaching families who are going through these issues, Brazilian families go through these issues a lot. They have a very similar issue with Australia. Like they have
mm,
the offset school year.
sure,
Um,
okay.
and so you always have to either go up or go down. They are almost always forced to go down because people go, well, you're going to struggle with the curriculum. You're going to struggle with the language. There are so many Brazilian TCKs I've met who don't finish high school until they're 20 because they keep being forced down a half a year. And then maybe they go back to Brazil and they're not prepared to do the end of school exams in Brazil because the curriculum hasn't prepared them for it. And so then they have
Mm,
to go back another year or so to do the catch up
mm-hmm.
work so that they can be able to complete the exams, which allow them to enter university.
Ah, man, this is so frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And they're the kind of decisions that, unless you have someone to sit you down years
Mm-hmm.
in advance to think through the process, there's nothing you can do about it. And unless you have parents who are going to go to bat with an education system that is against them, you're never going to be able to change this. So I actually, at one point, I worked with a Brazilian family who were trying to get their daughter moved up. They said that she's in a class that she's 18 months older than her peers, and she's a
Uh-huh.
sweet kid. She's getting along with them, but like they're not her friends because they're not her peers. They're too much younger.
Yeah.
And yes, we know she's not really academically ready in English for that level, but we will pay for tutors. We will do what it takes.
Also,
She's in
like when you're a
her final years
child,
of
you pick
school
up
yet.
quick.
Yeah, she's not in her final years of high school yet. It doesn't
Uh-huh.
count yet. Like, let's put her in a class where she'll be happy, work on the English and because she's smart enough. It's just the English. It's not her academic capacity. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and worked with both the school and the parents had asked for advice, and so I got to work and mediate with them to come to a solution that everyone was going to be happy with. Um,
Okay.
but this is happening around the world constantly, and it's really hard.
Okay. So you're also mediating between parties to find like
Yeah,
a
occasionally
solution
when I'm
that,
asked to, yeah.
yeah,
I get
yeah.
asked for advice a lot. So I do consultation calls with parents or with schools where they get to come and talk through what's going on in their situation because they need someone specialized who knows exactly how these things work. And it's hard sometimes to find an outside person who gets what you're going through.
Mm-hmm. And but wait, so this is also what you discuss in thongs or flip-flops?
So thongs or flip flops, yeah, we discuss all of these issues for the Australian families, like
Ah,
this
okay.
curriculum and crossing years and what it's like coming back into Australian culture because it's really hard. Repatriation
Mm,
into Australian culture is really hard, and so the whole thing is like a guidebook on how do
uh-huh.
you, as an Australian who was raised outside Australia, how do you wrestle with your identity, what it means to be Australian, how do you find your place in Australian culture without having to pretend you're not who you are, without letting go of all those experiences that have made you who you are. One of the things
Mm-hmm.
I love best is that we had a bunch of different people share their experiences of what being Australian means to them and when they feel the most Australian. And several people said, actually, it's when I have debates and when I disagree with other Australians because this is the only country where I have the right to have these opinions and share what I think, because, you know, I lived in Cambodia for a long time growing up, but I don't have the right there of a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I get to vote. Here, I get to have a say. Here, I'm a citizen. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not about me trying to fit in. I get to have my say and be part of things here. And so even when I disagree with the mainstream, or I disagree with the politics, or I disagree with people, that's part of me being Australian. And I loved that. I love that so
Yeah.
much. I think that's
Yeah, I
part
bet.
of
Yeah.
integrating everything, is realizing my differences is part of what makes me belong here. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. So this book is also available on Amazon and
Everywhere.
everywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So also in the show notes, you will find a link to that one too. And from your own experience, going back to that school experience, was it harder for being always like torn apart from people you just met, the friends, or was it just because of the curriculum, because of learning?
There were a lot of things that were difficult for me, but also everyone's
Mm-hmm.
experience is different. My next sister down had an amazing experience living in the US. She loved it. She loved her friends. She loved the school. She loved the community. And she really didn't want to leave. And she actually went back multiple times to visit, went to her friend's wedding, like
Mm-hmm.
maintained those connections for a long time. Everyone's experience is different, even within the same family, because there are
Yeah.
so many different factors. For me, I think part of the issue was my transition through different kinds of schools really
Yeah.
was disruptive. Um, the fact that I only had 6 weeks in a school, because I
That
came
is
in later
really
than my family, which
short.
is a whole other story. So they had 3 months in the school before the summer holidays. I had 6 weeks. Coming in late like that, I only had 6 weeks in a school, then changed
Yeah.
schools. Um, so I really didn't start. I only had 18 months really of being in proper schooling. Um, between all of the summer holidays and the different transitions and stuff. So I didn't, it took me a long
Mm-hmm.
time to get settled. But also, I was older. And so by the time I really got settled into that school, I was 14. And there's an expectation that as a teenager, you know the cultural rules. And so if you break the cultural rules, that you're doing it on purpose to be a rebel or to be a smartass or
Yeah.
to, you know, be disrespectful. And so I think for my younger sisters, there was a little bit more flexibility and freedom of um, being told and given some grace around things. Like my younger sister, being in primary school, they said the Pledge of Allegiance in
Yeah,
the
they do
classroom every
that.
morning.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the school. In high school, you only did it
Uh-huh.
every now and then, like when there was a big assembly in my school. But her teacher told her, look, I know you're not American, so you don't have to do this. She chose to do it anyway
Yeah.
because she didn't want to stand out. But she was given that piece of
Mm-hmm.
understanding,
Right.
which I never.
Yes.
I actually had friends get mad at me because I didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Like, why would you not do that? That's so rude. Not understanding that, but it's not my
Yes,
flag. It's
also
not my
probably you
country.
don't know the words.
Um,
I know, but in the beginning you don't know,
I mean,
right?
you learn the words pretty quick because you hear it enough times. But no, the first time I absolutely had no idea. First couple of times, but this sense of them feeling that it was a betrayal for me, that it was rude
Mm-hmm.
for me not to do that, with
Yeah.
no one to say otherwise. I had a friend from Northern Ireland who she said the pledge, with hand on heart, because she didn't want to make other people mad. And I just couldn't do it. Because I'm like, words, I think because I'm a writer, especially, words are so meaningful to
I
me. I
see.
couldn't
Yeah.
say words that weren't true.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. Yeah, I'd usually just, I'd stand up to be respectful to
Yeah.
them, but like, I wouldn't say it.
Mm-hmm.
And other things, like I was used to a very different dynamic in the classroom between teacher and students, and it would get me in trouble sometimes. That teachers thought I was, yeah, that I was disrespecting them when I wasn't intending that at
I
all.
see. Yeah.
And so I felt every day at school I was in a very anxious state, trying to be good, trying to be accepted, which made everything feel harder.
Yeah.
Um, I was trying to work out the social rules with friends, with the classroom, and everything just felt hard. And I think it's part of why it was so disappointing to come back to Australia and it not just be easy.
Yeah.
Because I think life isn't ever just easy, but you get that idealistic idea that this is all going to get solved by changing countries. Sometimes we leave our passport country with this idea of escaping as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't quite work either.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think for me, it was just the general stress of life and no one seeming to recognize that I was coping with an additional layer of stress. Now, add to that the fact that I'm autistic. And I was not diagnosed at the time. I didn't get diagnosed till I was nearly 30. And so it was harder for me to read those social cues.
Yeah.
And so you've got another layer of feeling misunderstood and of struggle. So I had these multiple layers of things that were wrong or things that were happening that no one saw, and these invisible struggles that I was working through. And I found it really hard. And for a long time, I took it out on the country and was like, America is bad.
Okay.
I don't like America. I don't like Americans. After I came back, I didn't feel that way in the US as much. I felt it after I came back. I wanted to blame all of my struggles and all of my hardships on that experience. I'm just going to put it in a box and just say that place was the problem. And then, of course, I moved to China and I ended up making some really delightful friends from the US and go, well, this doesn't
add up.
Connect. I'm going to have to process through what actually happened. And then I found the TCK literature and I had words, I had vocabulary, I had stories to explain why I had struggled. And it opened the box to processing it. And that's something I really believe in. I really believe that so many of us have had these experiences that we don't have language to explain. But when someone gives you that language, it allows you to sort through the hard things so that you can lean into the good things. Because I learned a lot in that time too. I had great experiences too. I had some really kind, lovely friends. I had friends that were so lovely and kind, in fact, that it confused me as an Australian who went to a rough public school where nobody was nice to anybody. I was like, why are these people being so nice to me? It freaks me out. Like, it was not all terrible, but I couldn't really see that until I'd processed the hard things.
Yeah. All right. So our time is coming to an end, but this was super insightful. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes, because I also have children who are who are about to move abroad. So we'll see. So this was very good to know.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Oh, good to know what to expect.
Yeah.
Maybe. And what to do.
Well, if you ever have questions, you know how to contact me and ask. And if any of your listeners have questions,
I will.
We have an email at info@tcktraining.com, and we are always here to answer questions from parents, to put you in the right direction with anything that you need.
Yes, and I wanted to add too that you guys also work in different languages. I saw there's German, Portuguese, Spanish,
and a little bit of Mandarin. We have a few resources in Mandarin as well.
Yeah, so this is very helpful for other people who are struggling with English. So I think that's a really important information there.
We also have a list of TCK-informed counselling and educational support services, and a lot of them have multiple languages as well, which we've labelled on our resources page.
Awesome. All right. Then again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for taking. Yes, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Great. Yeah, that was Tanya's incredible story. So check out the show notes if you find out more about her work, about her books, and about herself. So there are links where you can just click on and then you will find it. There are also the ways down there in the show notes how you can support the podcast. If you stayed for so long, thank you. I appreciate it so much. Yes, I would love to hear from you. If you want to be a guest on the show, check out the website worldscollide.com or send me an email, worldscollide123@gmail.com, to reach out to me. Of course, if you have any other questions or comments as well. I'm always here to listen and I would love to hear back from you. Oh yeah, and then also there's one more way. So if you are following me on the socials, yeah, if you want to, you can definitely share the posts. So more people see it, more people will get to know the podcast. That would be awesome. All right, thanks for this. Next week. Wow, next week is already Thanksgiving. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.